Time to talk a little NFL. Time to talk some Super Bowl. Time to talk some sense into the Andy Reid haters out there. NFL insider Casey Joyner here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. He appears via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. And we had a good game last night. It was an entertaining game, not a great game. But let me start with this, Casey. What did you like about the Chiefs' game plan that maybe you say that was the difference in the game, or was it not a game plan thing? It was an individual performance thing, because I think most people would look at Mahomes and say he didn't have a great game and still won the MVP.
Yeah, I think Twitter would say that Shakira or Damian Williams should have won the MVP. One of those two. But what I liked about their game plan, here's something that just still amazes me looking at the number right now. The Chiefs, their backup tight end is a guy named Blake Bell. He plays 28 snaps last night. That's as many snaps, that's more snaps actually than Kyle Juszczyk played last night. I mean, the Chiefs decided we're going to go power on offense, and we're going to go in here and not go full power. We're not going to go three tight ends. We're not going to go an extra lineman or anything very often. I only had one snap for a third lineman, but we're going to get us a tight end in here. We're going to get a second tight end in here. We're going to handle these guys power with power, and people didn't think they could do that. And I was trying to tell Chiefs fans, your team can win running the football. They can win a power, and they acted like I was bashing Mahomes. I'm like, trust me, guys, you can do this. And Andy Reid showed last night, if I got to win running the ball, I'll do that too.
Yeah, and in the end, I mean, you can make, as you mentioned, that Damian Williams should have been the MVP of that game, because you're right. I thought, and I'm glad that you said it, was the Chiefs' running game that kept the San Francisco pass rush just off balance enough late in the game to allow Mahomes to now take over the fourth quarter.
It was their running game. I mean, it was because they could not pass block at all for Mahomes, and a lot of their problems were they couldn't pass block for Mahomes, so they had to get him out of the pocket or do things that move him away from the pass rush, and that limits what your offense can do. If you can't just have him drag around the whole offense, if you're going to a side, it's just difficult, or he was just having to scramble out of the pocket. Later in the contest, they decided to do things like they were chipping the defensive ends and such, doing a fantastic job there, but until they did that, the running game was what kept him going. And Mahomes, he looked out of sorts all game long, and it was a lot because of the pass rush. He didn't think he was going to get good blocking.
Yeah. What did you think? I mean, Andy Reid, of course, had been maligned for not being able to win the big game, and then he finally, is able to get it done. And it's not that he couldn't win this game. It's just that he didn't win this game in the past. He kind of cements himself. I think one of the things I realized watching that game last night is that this guy is a giant in the game. It's not just he was the former coach of the Eagles who couldn't get this thing done. He is thought of as one of the greats of all time, and that win last night escalates him into another stratosphere almost.
It does. It's great to see him get that, get the recognition. But yeah, it is. It's like this week is showing us, because we have kind of a provincial view just from having him been in Philadelphia for so long. It's like you just see him as the Eagles coach. You don't see him the way the league sees him. He is an influential guy. His offenses are looked at by other teams as very not quite Don Coryell, but he's having that kind of an impact on the league as a whole, and it's great to see that. But I still think the great thing for him is last year, Kansas City, if they do the game plan they used last year, the pass heavy, we can't stop teams, if they would just say we're going to funnel all this through Mahomes, I think they don't win this contest. I think he realized after last year, I've got to be able to win with the running game if I need to. I need to be able to have a better defense, and I can't be getting into shootouts all the time, and realizing that he needed to make those corrections. That kind of adjustment, we're basically getting away from Andy Reid pass-first football, is what helped him get the Super Bowl win.
All right, right around halftime, that game, I think a lot of people thought took a little bit of a turn. Because it's 10-10, San Francisco's got the ball in plenty of time. Some people say, well, he didn't trust Garoppolo. Some people say, well, he did take a shot, and Kittle got called for the OPI. What do you make of the final minute and a half from Shanahan the first?
I think that I think he should have called one timeout, because even if they get the pass to Kittle, if it does count, he only got like 9 seconds left, if I remember correctly. There wasn't very much time on the clock, so you weren't going to be able to capitalize other than maybe a field goal. I do think, though, that he said, I think he didn't trust. Okay, we've stopped the Chiefs, and we only held them to 10 points at that time. I'd like to keep it like that and hold them to that. But also, it's kind of weird because I get the sense he didn't trust Garoppolo, and he didn't want to put it into his hands. and then later in the contest he was having to do that. And I think that's a big thing for the 49ers is they're wondering now, they're having the same questions now that the Rams had last year, where the Rams said after that game, they're like, is Goff really our guy? And I think the 49ers are asking now some of the things that people watching tape can see for a while, that Garoppolo will make some boneheaded plays, and he's not. He likes to think he's Brett Favre, but he's not.
If you look back, do you think Shanahan put too much trust in his defense?
I think he did, and I cannot understand why they got away from power. I looked at the Sports Information Solutions Data Hub and checked how did Kansas City do this year when they faced two tight ends. Doesn't matter what's in the backfield, one back, two back, whatever, just two tight ends in the contest. So a suggestion is you go into power. They ranked 27th in yards per carry when they faced two tight ends. And the 49ers, they only used Tololo and Dwelly, two solid tight ends, backup tight ends. If you're trying to go blocking, they're fairly good guys to average a second and third. A combined 11 snaps, 7 for Tololo, 4 for Dwelly. And again, Juszczyk was only out there for 23 snaps, 40% of the plays. He got completely away from that back. Bourne, the third wide receiver, he had 28 snaps versus Juszczyk's 23. A little bit of that might be to the end of the game where you have to go pass heavy, but they didn't have to do it until very late. They just decided we're going to go three wideouts, and that's where we're going to attack this defense. And it just makes me scratch my head because power was the way to beat the Chiefs.
Well, I mean, all right, so I'll throw you with this. Chris Jones, I thought was awesome. I mean, I thought he really played a big role in the game because they tried to get the ball. It seemed that they were running the ball well with Samuel in the reversal stuff, but they didn't have the same effect when they were just running the ball, with their running backs. I mean, they only ran the ball with Mostert, 12 times last night. I don't think anybody else even got maybe Tevin Coleman 1 or 2.
Yeah, Coleman was only out there. He wasn't even out there for 17 snaps, and he only had a few touches. And they had Wilson with the one big run, but he was only out there 5 snaps. So, yeah, I mean, they weren't going there. And, yeah, they couldn't block with Jones. They were attacking the edges. But that's the thing about the San Francisco offense is if they can't, we were talking late last week about they do so many different things well. They can do outside zone. They can do the reverses. They can do inside stuff. And if you've got Jones playing that well, trap the guy for crying out loud. And I didn't think they were doing that. I mean, if that's the case, fine, let him get upfield and take a guard and trap him. They've got the ability to do those things. They've shown that, but I think they just went into the contest and said they almost seeded the idea that we could run up the middle, or we're going to let these guys we're not going to have to make them stop us on these plays. And if you limit yourself in what you can do, that's a bad thing, especially when you've been as good as you've been running power all year and you get away from it in the title game.
Casey Joyner, NFL Insider, breaking down last night's game. There's a big play in that game, 2 big plays, 2 big throws. One, the Hill throw on 3rd down and 16, which it's kind of an underthrown ball that Hill's just so wide open. What happens on that play?
What happens on that play is they were talking about it after the game that the 49ers have been using a lot of what they call robber coverage, where you get a safety that comes down and take away the crossing routes, essentially. Because you can, as a defense, you can stop short, medium, and deep is what you can usually stop, and a lot of times you can only pick 2 of those if you really want to, just because you only have so many people to go to so many places. So they were choosing to stop the crossing routes, and Kelsey had taken away the robber on that route, so that left Hill open. Having said that, though, I mean, it looked like you have the coaching footage just now yet, so you can't quite see the all 22, but it looked like that the 49ers still were out of position, that somebody read a route wrong or something of that nature, because it shouldn't have been that uncontested the way it was. And I think it's also thinking you're going to get a lot of pass rush on Holmes, but the one play when you needed pass rush, it got there a quarter second late.
All right, so then on the flip side, it's a 4-point game with about 3 minutes to go. And Garoppolo has a chance to cement a legacy for himself, and he comes up short. He overthrows Emmanuel Sanders. So what do we learn about Jimmy G? Can they win a title with him as the quarterback, or did Kyle Shanahan tell you everything you need to know about what they think about Garoppolo?
I think part of it, Shanahan told us what we need to know about Garoppolo. I look at that drive, though. So, okay, they're down 24-20, 2:39 on the clock. Kick off to James, and James, instead of letting it go to the end zone, brings it out, despite the fact Kansas City's been shutting down the kick returns all game. He only gets out to the 15-yard line. Okay, you cost yourself 10 yards right there instead of letting the ball just go. Then they get down there, and they get the pass to Bourne that gets them where he kind of ad-libs and gets down to the Kansas City 49. You're 1st and 10. In Kansas City 49-yard line, 1:49 left, you've got 3 timeouts. Why throw? In fact, it's 4 dropbacks. It's 3 passes, then the sack. Why in the world did this suddenly become Garoppolo has to be throwing the ball all downfield? You've got a $149. You've got time out. Drive downfield, score a touchdown, and leave Kansas City with no time or no timeouts. But instead, they got rattled and they didn't do it. So it's both of those things. The kickoff return was a bad thing. They had a false start there, and thinking that you needed to funnel it through Garoppolo. It makes me think that Shanahan, people said he wasn't, that maybe he wasn't aggressive enough, this, that, and the other at times. This is now the second time in a Super Bowl when he's had a situation where he needed to play a certain way that he went too aggressive. He did that in the Super Bowl. They lost 28-3 to the Patriots. They passed and they should have ran. Here's the same thing. They were passing when they should have running, and he just needs to trust his running game, and he didn't.
Yeah, for the most part, the storyline coming in, Casey, was Mahomes is just better than Garoppolo, and I guess in the end that's what it came down to.
It did come down to that. Mahomes did make the plays. I mean,
He wasn't great.
Wasn't great. He's like I'm going to date myself here a little bit, but Terry Bradshaw back in the day had the Star Wars Super Bowl when Star makes a 2 big catches. Star Wars should have been the MVP because Bradshaw had a terrible game. But, when in default, you go ahead and give it to the winning quarterback. So that's what they did there. So, I mean, I don't have a big problem with it, but he did make the big plays when he needed to. But I still think this is a Super Bowl where if the 49ers would have said we're going to go power and play the type of game we play, that we win that contest. And Andy Reid intentionally went away from the way he wanted to, he usually likes to be to his favor, and the 49ers went away from what they like to be to their detriment.
All right, Casey Joyner, all season long, Mondays and Fridays, we break it all down. I can't believe it's all done. Couple things. Number one, I do want to ask an Eagles question before we roll out here. Couple. Malcolm Jenkins was on with us Friday, and, he is unhappy with the contract. He has stated that he will not play under the current deal. He's going to be 33 years old, or 32 or 33. If you're the Eagles, are you in a tough spot with Malcolm Jenkins, or is it an easy call on what to do with him? How did he play this year? What kind of contract would you give him?
You got a Super Bowl window. I really think the Eagles still have a Super Bowl window if they're healthy. Look what they did. It's funny because the general manager, Howie Roseman, is apologizing at the end of the season for a terrible season. Man, I'm like, my God, you guys came back. One of those games at the end, you made it to the playoffs. And I mean, given the injuries that you had, a lot of teams have just folded their tent. So you get healthy and add some talent to this team. There is an NFC Super Bowl window here, I think. I mean, at least potential. If that's the case, you have to factor that in. And if you take Jenkins out of the equation, I think that Super Bowl window is a little bit smaller than it would be. So if I'm them, I make that. But they may be looking at a longer-term thing and saying, hey, we need to win over the long term. But I think they need to be thinking win short term now because they've got a window open to do that.
All right. Obviously, we got a lot of storylines this offseason. Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees. Is the story of the offseason where these quarterbacks land?
I think a lot of it is, but I think a lot of those quarterbacks are going to find, if you get Rivers going down to, say, Tampa, which is the rumor that he's going to go down there, you're talking, this is the changing of the guard right now because you're going to have these quarterbacks leaving, and most of them are going to have the Johnny Unitas end of their career, where Johnny Unitas plays in Baltimore for all those years, and he goes to the Chargers and has a terrible 4-game run and just retires mid-season. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to happen with these guys, I think, is they're going to have a particular drop-off, but now we've got to what the part of the vacuum is, too. You've had these great quarterbacks who've been taking over the league for a while, and now we're shifting from them to other quarterbacks. So I think, Mahomes is still obviously the favorite to be the greatest quarterback in the league and all that stuff, but you've got a window there because these guys are leaving. I don't expect them to play at their respective historical talent levels when they get to these new places. So I think it's changing the guard is where we're at.
All right, Casey, we'll leave with this. It's been a great season as well, talking football. XFL, yay or nay? Is that going to work?
Vince McMahon is reportedly expecting to lose. He sold a bunch of stock last year, and he's got money in the bank to lose a lot of cash on the XFL over the next 3 years. But he's got a problem in that last week, Vince McMahon fired his two presidents of the company. And when he did it, the company lost 22% of its stock value in one day. Wall Street absolutely flipped out. And I think if the WWE continues to have problems where they got declining ratings and AEW is where it is, competing with them on a head-to-head level and succeeding, if those problems continue on the wrestling side, I wonder if he might throw in the towel. He's got 3 years in the bank, but I wonder if he might throw in the towel if things are going bad in the wrestling war.
Unbelievable. Casey, NFL Insider, of course. What for the people looking for you in the off season and getting ready for next football season? What are some of the things that they can do to keep up with you?
I am going to be revamping the website, the footballscientist.com. It's going to probably come out later this week. I've been working with a developer. It's going to be a brand new site for the Football Scientist. I've been doing draft guides and start sit service on the site for years, and now I'm going to do full year coverage of NFL, fantasy football, the draft. I'm going to have a subscription service called PayDirt, so I'll be rolling that out later this week. And when I get that up and running, I'll send you some stuff, and we can tell the audience more in detail.
All right, at KC Joyner TFS, as in the Football Scientist. You can check him out there. And, of course, we do it every Monday and Friday, all football season long, and it is sadly come to a close. Another year in the books, Casey. It's always a pleasure. We will certainly keep in touch, and when football news happens, we will tap into the Football Scientist.
I really appreciate that. It's been a great time.
All right, man. Take care. Casey Joyner, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN.